What's going on, guys? It's Frito here. We've got the entire perk loadout sheet for all 42 characters. I want to break them down and then give a little bit of a review. Still early days. They might be able to change and tweak these, so won't get too nerdy about it. But the way the perks work is kind of similar to your ultimate, where you work up towards it. You level up your character up to level 2 to gain a minor perk. This is just like mostly a stat increase, playstyle change, slight alteration, not a major thing. But once you get up to level 3, they do in fact call that one a major perk, which is going to be a fundamental change to your playstyle. Starting off with Ashe, you get rapid fire. Unscoped shots gain 30% increased attack speed, but deal 15% less damage. Or Sidewinder, Coach Gun pushes Ashe and enemies 20% farther. The major perk is Viper Sting. Hitting 2 consecutive scope shots on a target deals 25 extra damage and reloads 2 ammo. Or Air Burst on her Dynamite, which allows 40% increased detonation radius while airborne and refunds 3 ammo when thrown. Couple things stand out to me right away. For the minor perk, rapid fire shooting from the hip is going to be objectively better with rapid fire, because the only downside is hitting headshots, and a lot of times you're finishing off a target or hitting something that's small. So I think more often than not, that's an easy one to go for, because when you want to land crits, you're usually scoping anyway. However, kind of a crafty player, especially on a map that allows for knockoffs, or perhaps certain positions that you'll be able to get to better with the Sidewinder upgrade, that allows for some flexibility, right? Map to map, you might actually want to choose one of those two, but more often than not, rapid fire, I think, will be better, especially since it allows you to hit your dynamite easier in theory as well. Similar theme on the major perk as well. Either Air Burst makes your dynamite a huge radius and affects your ammo, or Viper Sting makes your headshots deal more and refunds your ammo. One is going to help you really knock down tanks, and the other one will help you explode in AoE. Both are good. I think the skill curve on the character matters a lot. The better your aim is, the more value you'll get out of headshots anyway. But I think overall, the Dynamite one might be the most reliable. Part of my problem with the perk system is it is trying to be a bit balanced, so the headshot thing can't get too out of control, otherwise the top players will abuse it. So that means the numbers on it can't really get too big, and so you kind of have to somehow balance a scoped headshot next to hitting in a big AoE, and one's much easier than the other. Bastion, we got Smart Bomb. A 36 technical grenade self knockback is increased by 25% and no longer damages you. Or Armored Artillery. Configuration Artillery grants 300 temporary overhealth. Wow, is this really even a choice? One is for trick shots and one is way more stats. All right, on to the major one. Lindholm Explosives. Configuration Assault's weapon slowly fires explosive shells instead of a rotary cannon, or you can get self-repair back from Overwatch 1. Press E to rapidly heal yourself. The fun factor of this sounds really cool, but a problem I have is these are mechanics that were already in Overwatch 1, so it's not really that new. Cassidy gets Quick Draw. Fan the Hammer shots are individually controlled and can crit for 50% more damage. Or Past Noon, Deadeye refunds 30% ult charge if it fully expires. The major perks are Gunslinging. Critical hits with primary fire reduce the cooldown of combat roll by 3 seconds. Oh my goodness, that also reloads your gun, remember, and has all the benefits of the roll, which reduces damage. Bang Bang, Cassidy throws a second flashbang that travels farther, but both flashbangs deal 30% reduced damage. Minor perk, super easy. Quick Draw is like 5 times better than missing your ultimate. Kind of confused on that one. And the major perks, these are extreme firepower for Cassidy, either one. A bit of a better example of a major perk choice where you'll be able to flex around based on what you're playing against. The vast majority of the time, Gunslinging will be the best one. That's stats better, but having 2 flashbangs, I mean, if they're diving you and you're getting targeted, now you can actually counter dive much harsher without your teammate also needing to swap. So I like this change for Cassidy, but it's clearly overpowered and you need hero bans. Echo, Friendly imaging. Duplicate can now also target allies, or enhanced duplication. During duplicate, your clone's first ultimate extends duplicate's duration by 3 seconds. Her major perk will be full salvo. Sticky bombs fires 50% more projectiles, but all sticky bombs deal 15% less damage. Or high beams. Focusing beam eliminations resets flight's cooldown. Gonna say the minor perk easily goes to anything that's gonna extend your ultimate. Targeting allies is kind of nice. I don't know why you would need to do that necessarily. It's a boost that Loki can do it in Marvel Rivals, but I don't think that is necessarily even much added power. And then the major perk, this one seems pretty easy to me as well, because anything that gives more power up front tends to be much better than a payoff later. So high beams, if you reset flight after you get a kill, the question is, did you need that to gain an advantage to win the fight, to play the game, etc., etc.? Not really. Like, if you killed the thing, then you're probably fine. Like, it's cool in that you get like another way to have a elimination reset, sort of like Genji. It's going to feel great. However, full salvo, just getting way more sticky bombs will make them easier to hit, so the damage reduction kind of doesn't matter. And overall, I think you're just going to deal way more damage because you can pump that into a tank. You can use it to break shields. You can use it to win duels. And if you just get kills more often with one of your key cooldowns, like, why would you rather be able to fly away or fly in more? Like, you just don't need to do that. You just get the kills and be fine. Genji gets acrobatics. Swift strike resets double jump. Okay. Sounds kind of fun. But Dragon's Thirst. Dragon Blade swings gain 30% lifesteal. I mean, there's a mile of difference between these two. The major perk, Blade Twisting. Swift strike deals 25 additional damage over time when used shortly after an elimination. Or Meditation. Regenerate 25 health per second while Deflect is active. Okay, in theory, I'd love to see a world where you getting more double jumps matters a whole lot, but I just can't see that mattering more than being able to gain life, aka more durability during Dragon Blade, which is kind of a mediocre ult in a lot of cases. So this will let you stay in and require less help to actually use your ultimate. And then once you do live to get your kill off, then you can dash reset. So I think that is way stronger for sure. The major perks are actually a little muted, like gain a little health or gain a little extra damage after a limb. Those both to me seem a bit boring. I think probably the health will matter more because you'll always get it and always control it. To some degree, sometimes with these things, I sort of just wish Blade Twisting was in the character inherently, you know? Like, why, when Genji does a melee, it doesn't deal some bleed damage? Like, I don't know, Queen does, why not him as well? The cool factor matters a lot. When we're weighing up the perks, I don't think it should be something that should be inherent to the character anyway, but we'll see as they keep developing this. Hanzo, Sonic Disruption. Sonic Arrow hacks nearby health packs for 12 seconds, or Scatter Arrows. Storm Arrow splits into 3 new projectiles on their first ricochet and bounce 2 extra times. The major perks are Dragon Fury. After hitting an enemy with primary fire, gain 25% attack speed for 1 second. Kind of short. Can you even get 2 attacks off during that? So it's like your next follow-up attack will be a bit faster. Pretty interesting though. Definitely helps in a lot of duels. Yamagachi technique. Wall climb accelerates your lunge cooldown by 250%. Wow, big number. I think for sure charging up your bow faster is way better than that. Like, even if wall climb instantly reset your lunge cooldown, I'm not so sure that's that important because you should have been able to hold it anyway. But with a way to get it back faster, maybe you can play a little bit more aggressive. Over time, I'm pretty sure that Scatter Arrows isn't better than Storm Arrow. Storm Arrow is a very spammy and easy to use ability. Scatter Arrows has a higher upside, but not really worth it, and hacking health packs seems okay. But those might be a bit equal, perhaps. What do they got cooked up for my boy Junkrat? Aluminum frame. Steel Trap's throw range is increased by 50%, or Nitro Boost. During Riptire, use left shift to gain a quick boost of speed. Doing so reduces Riptire's damage by 50%. The major perks are Frag Cannon. Frag Launcher's projectile speed is increased by 40%, but its maximum ammo is reduced by 1. Or Tick Tock. Concussive Mine. Arms half of a second after landing, increasing damage by 50%, explosion radius by 50%, and health by 200%. So Junk is one of my most played characters in the entire game. I got to top 1% playing Pharah and Junkrat in the last seasons that I really dedicated to. The minor perks are both cool. Good. A speed boost on Tyre that will drop its damage gives it some reliability, because as an ultimate, it's either way too good or way too useless. So this will allow you to actually maybe chase down a Tracer who has less health anyway, but a lot of times you won't need it, so then you can just throw your trap a little farther and nobody really cares about that anyway. It's like kind of a negligible, goofy thing. That's fine. I'm a little concerned at a major perk like Frag Cannon because it just looks so easy to exploit. There's so many players that play Junkrat that are like specialists like me, and you give me a really improved grenade launcher, it's going to be hell on earth for a lot of players. How is it possible for them to balance something like this? Because he's already a pretty decent character and annoying as hell. So yeah, we lose one ammo, but this means the projectiles are gonna be way easier to hit at longer range, at all ranges really, but way more annoying. I'm not so sure I like this kind of change. They're either making Junkrat's weapon better or his concussive mine just better. These are flat stat upgrades and aren't that interesting. Whereas the other ones on the minor perk tree, surprisingly this time, make the character play a little differently or give a new ability. I think that's cool, but I don't know. I think this is a really lame one that they're gonna regret if it's any good. Mei gets Chilling Reach. Primary Fire's range is increased by 30%, or Permafrost. Ice Wall's duration and cooldown are increased by 2 seconds. The major perks are Biting Cold. Secondary Fire hits slow enemies by 15% for 1.5 seconds, stacking up to 30%. So basically Overwatch 1 Mei. Or Cryo Storm. Cryo Freeze slows and deals 70 damage per second to nearby enemies. Now, important thing to notice here, the major perk is on Alt Fire. The minor perk can go on Primary Fire. So you can get further range on the beam or a slowing effect for the icicles hitting you, which I think is cool in theory for fun factor. Ice Wall's duration and cooldown increased by 2 seconds. I don't know. Never picked that. No way. The major perks here are a bit more interesting. Having an alt fire add a little bit of slow, I think probably isn't as impactful as Cryo Freeze, which I believe is straight up a PvE ability they showed, where when she goes into Icicle, she'll deal damage and slow. Kind of depends how much that is, but in an AoE where you're safe, you're stalling the point, maybe you're helping a teammate, you can actually swing fights that way. Making your primary a bit better might be as good, but I kind of doubt it. I think the AoE is going to be better. Pharah's got Drift Thrusters. Pharah can move while Barrage is active. That's pretty nuts. Or Helix Shields convert 75 health into shields, which means you can self-regenerate it, I believe. Major perks are Concussive Implosion. That's the one they previewed on the live stream. Concussive Blast. Knockback is inverted to pull things in, sort of like a Graviton Surge in a way. Or Fuel Stores, where Jet Dash grants 50% fuel. Maximum overfuel is increased by 100%. This perk list is probably one of the most competitive. Normally we would say any benefit to health is like such a massive upgrade that you might want to consider that. Also, self-heal, the way Pharah with the rework plays, you don't necessarily have to be playing with a Mercy all the time. Having self-shields will allow you to use cover a lot more. Trust, like, I play Pharah at a decently high level, so one of my best characters after the rework for sure. But at the same time, there's a lot of matchups where being able to move with Barrage can turn an ultimate, which might be an auto die button, into a really, really good ultimate. I mean, the ult's already pretty nuts, and it can nuke a single tank in Overwatch 2. It's pretty overpowered, honestly. And this makes what is a pretty decent ultimate into an insane ultimate. So both minor perks are a little bit too strong, in my opinion. The major perks as well, quite good. Either increase your mobility or Conk Blast, turning into a mini grav. I think you could find reasons to pick all of these. So probably the strongest set of perks for any character thus far on an already very over-kitted Overwatch 2 rework character. Reaper gets Death's Shadow. Shadow Step reloads Hellfire shotguns and has 25% increased range. Or Soul Reaving. Collect soul globes from dead enemies to restore 50 health. That's straight up from Overwatch 1.0. They just reused the same assets, I guess. Really using their old homework to cash in some of the perks here. The major perks are Dire Triggers. Use right click to fire a volley with long range accuracy from both Hellfire shotguns. They were thinking about a Reaper rework for all this time, so now they've actually putting that into place. Or Ravenous Wraith. Leaving Wraith form grants 40% additional lifesteal for 3 seconds. That's pretty nuts too. If you're in a bit of more of a brawly meta, then maybe collecting health will be stronger, especially if you have a team comp with low healing. You might want to go for that one. But I think overall, getting another way to reload your shotguns is kind of nuts. So that's like actually a DPS increase if you think about it. When you're in and out of combat, it means you'll be able to work down the tank, teleport to the backline, and have your weapon ready to go. I think that's pretty nuts. Reaper's a character who changes a lot based on the meta and what's playable. Characters with distance control automatically tend to just like zone him out entirely. If it's an armor based meta, he looks a lot worse. For the major perk, I think it really depends how strong this alternate fire is. I have no idea what to expect. Is it a KSG shotgun from Black Ops 2? Do I just get to dunk on somebody? That affects how I feel about it. Or if we're giving Reaper an actual rail gun at close range, the stats on that matter a lot, whether that competes up against extra lifesteal. But this perk worries me because it kind of crosses a boundary of, well, how much should he do normally? How do we balance this? Do we want it to be balanced? Because it's getting to the point now where we're overstatting and power creeping Reaper, where there's certain tanks that physically will never be able to 1v1 him at all once he pops this ability. But maybe that's what Overwatch needs. I don't know. I don't have the answers anymore, guys. Do you want the game balanced or fun? Because wacky fun is never balanced. Sojourn, extended mag, maximum ammo is increased by 15 or overcharged. Railgun's maximum energy is increased by 50 while overclock is active. The major perks are dual thrusters, power slide gains an additional charge and its jump height shifts to lateral movement, or adhesive siphon, disruptor shot can stick to enemies and generate railgun energy when dealing damage. So that's reintroduction of something that they took out with some of these balance patches. I will say I like that idea because once in a while they have good ideas that they have to take out just for balance's sake. This is a better system overall. Like, I'm kind of skeptical on how well it's going to work, but it certainly is going to help them distribute power better and have more sliders to consider for the game, so they don't have to just keep reworking everything and gutting characters just for the sake of high tier balance. But I think in this hero's case, we can see and remember, this is where heroes are now. They have perks. So once all the characters in the game have perks, it's like the whole game just got power crept by 1 degree or 2 degrees possibly. Well, a benefit is we add a bunch of discovery onto the game. A downside is the clear winners of the entire hero meta will also be obvious. It looks to me like the buff to the ultimate looks stronger, and until they nerf the way that Sojourn generates rail, I'm gonna say having an extra charge on power slide is way better, because I don't think you really struggled to work up to charge. No, actually, you sort of got an insane amount of charge from the old disruptor shot giving it to you. So either one is really strong. If you don't need to run, you'll get more DPS out of adhesive siphon. But this is another one where when you start getting dove, you might want to swap to be able to run away, because dive characters aren't going to get hit by the nade anyway. So this is one way where you have some flexibility in your character to be able to adjust to the playstyle and team comp that the enemy is going to be playing. Soldier 76, Helix Rocket reloads 15 ammo if they damage an enemy. Field emergency, biotic field's healing is increased by 100% on critical allies, which means they're under 50%. The major perks are agility training, sprint speed is increased by 20% and reload can be performed while sprint is active, or stim pack. Biotic field can be used as a stim pack, increasing attack speed and reload speed by 30% while being unhealable for 4 seconds. Some cool choices here. If you hit a helix, you'll get extra ammo, which means more uptime, which means more damage, possibly overall. But I think saving an ally from death, including yourself, it gets more healing on you, I assume, as well. That's probably a bit better, because it's not like you lacked ammo. I'm thinking back to when the DPS characters used to be able to reload faster with the roll passive, and that was kind of, nothing. Reloads aren't that long or meaningful in this game. They matter and they add up over time, but it's just not worth a perk, I think. It'd have to be like a full reload. Major perk allows him to reload by running and runs faster, so anti-dive mechanic there, or a poke supremacy ability, a major buff to your biotic field, allowing it to be a stim pack for offense. That is freaking nuts. So if the enemy is running a slow comp, you 100% play this. If the enemy is running a dive comp, you run away. So far, it seems the damage rolls really benefit from these flexible perks. Sombra gets viral efficacy. Virus's cooldown is reduced by 3 seconds when an enemy affected by virus is eliminated. Control Alt Escape, teleporting with translocator while at critical health initiates passive health regen. The major perks are White Hat, Hack can be used on allies to restore 100 health over 2 seconds, or Stack Overflow. Hack's silence duration is increased by 100%, but its range is decreased by 30%. A lot of complicated things to consider here. For me, I'm pretty certain getting another virus faster matters way more than the few times that the self-heal is going to do much for you anyway. Remember, you're using Translocator and running away regardless, so why do you need the health immediately? Like, you're using your cooldown and presumably you are alive. So it's more so like if things were chasing you and then you got low, you could heal a little bit, but I don't know. If you're either out, you're out. Because if you're fully out of a fight in Overwatch, you have downtime. All that matters is uptime versus downtime. Having a bit more health during your downtime doesn't matter. Whereas anything that gains DPS, gains damage, gains an extra cooldown, that matters more. So viral efficacy, I think, is a clear winner there. Pretty funny that they're heading away to make Hack's silence duration go back up to the annoying, quote unquote, Overwatch 1 levels, or healing. I think the healing one probably is a bit better most of the time, but stats will adjust this quite a lot. Making an ability slightly better is usually not as good as giving flexibility to it, so then you can use it in multiple cases, because with White Hat, you can play in your backline and contribute a lot, as opposed to having downtime and not doing anything. Certainly, the tank players in Overwatch 2 are not happy to hear about Stack Overflow being an option, though, because with its range reined in, but its effect better, it's just going to get targeted on the tank, right? But don't worry, I'm sure they're going to rework Sombra for an 11th time and figure it out. Luckily, hero bans are coming. Next up, Symmetra. Minor perk is Sentry Capacity. Your Sentry turret gains an additional charge, or Advanced Teleportation. Teleporter's range is increased by 50%. The major perks are Perfect Alignment. Primary Fire's range increases by 15% with each additional charge level, or Shield's Battery, where Symmetra regenerates 20 shields per second while within 10 meters of her teleporter. Kind of hate these perks. They just seem kind of uninspired. Different ways to gain an extra stat here or there. You almost always want another Sentry. The turrets are strong. Maybe on a few map-specific locations, you're going to get some crazy advanced teleportation spots, so that makes the choice sometimes interesting. What else can they really do with this character, though? I think by the looks of it, Shield Battery's stats are a little low, where Sim gains 20 shields per second while within 10 meters of her teleporter. Keep in mind, it has a limited duration, so you are a bit more tanky, but to a small degree. I'm not so sure that helps more than always getting more range as you're beaming something down. And that, yeah, I think that's way better. Torbjorn's got Craftsman. Forge Hammer can restore armor health to allies. Turret Repair Heal is increased by 25%. Fully Loaded, Activating Overload fully refills Rivet Gun's ammo, as opposed to only partially, as it does now. Anchor Bolts is the first major perk. Deploy turret's throw range is increased by 50%, and it can now attach to walls and ceilings, or Overloaded Turret. Overload upgrades your turret for 5 seconds, increasing its health and damage. This is funny because in my I want team-ups in Overwatch video, I directly wanted to be able to heal my allies with my hammer. I love playing with Torbjorn, one of my favorite characters. I think fully reloading your gun is a bit better because it's so expensive to be pulling out your hammer. Like, it's okay, but it means you have downtime on shooting. I don't know. That's a little rough for me. I think, funnily enough, if they nerfed the other perk, then you could actually get to do that. Because the problem is with these, like, do you really want to pick a fun one that isn't as good ever? Which is exactly how I feel about the major perk as well. Why flank with the turret if it just could be stronger? Overloaded Turret is basically the more upgraded attack in Marvel Rivals, which is very strong. Tracer, Blink Packs. Health packs restore 1 blink charge. Oh my goodness, that is pretty nuts. Or Pulse Bomb's radius is increased by 50%. For all you players that pulse bomb the ground, or maybe want to pulse into the grav, we'll say, the major perk are Flashback Recall restores all blink charges, and Quantum Entanglement Recall grants 50 overhealth and decays over time. Okay, these ways to get your blinks back, nuts, absolutely insane. You have no idea the amount of skill expression that's in this hero, has been ever since Overwatch 1, kind of just dancing circles around everybody. Tracer was a meta-dominant hero at the highest tiers of play forever because she just outpaced everyone and could play positions entirely on her own. These perks like triple down on that idea, where she already was good controlling health packs. Now she'll be even better at it. So the gap between Tracer on a flank route controlling a pack is way stronger now. She can use a blink aggressively and get it recharged when healing on a pack. That's nuts. I'm not so sure you need pulse bombs, radius increased. Like, that would be a fun thing to try, though. Bigger explosions, more funner. Good. I like the idea, but I think more blinks is certainly the better ones here. If you're not as good at Tracer, though, you would go for the extra overhealth, because if you're playing at elos where just having a bit more extra tankiness. So overall, these perks, nuts. Way, way, way too good. But fun factor, and I think can appeal to a variety of skill tiers, so good design in my opinion. Venture, seismic sense. While underground, Venture can sense enemies within 25 meters. So I think that means like Sombra can see players behind walls and stuff, wall hacks perhaps, or some diminished version of that. Evacuation, exhilaration. While tectonic shock is active, cooldowns refresh 30% faster. The major perks are Smart R Evacuator. Smart Evacuator's range is increased by 25%, or Covered in Dirt. Dealing damage with Clobber grants up to 30 Explorer's Resolve shields. Which is basically just another way to do that, because the other abilities did that for them. Not a huge fan of these. Kind of boring stat increases, just makes the character stronger. However, the lore of it and the hero fantasy gets some points. The idea of sensing them while you're just underground is pretty cool. You probably don't need all of your cooldowns just when you ult. Like, the ult is so strong anyway. I think, like, in theory, getting your cooldowns better matters, but do you want to be using your escape cooldowns when ulting? That kind of just means you probably ulted wrong on Venture. You can go from a small range increase to a bit more shield health if you do the Clobber combo. Both seem kind of good for different situations. Just all of this is kind of muted to me. Widowmaker, scoped efficiency. Scope shots cost 3 ammo instead of 5, or focused aim. Scope shots charge 50% faster during infrasight. Big buff to the ultimate. That is nuts. The major perk is Escape Plan. Scope shot hits reduce grappling hooks cooldown by up to 4 seconds. That includes a body shot. It didn't say crit there. Or Deadly Dew. Venom Mine gains 50% increased damage and a second charge, enabling 2 active mines at a time. Definitely the mobility. Venom Mine is just not that good of an ability, so never buffing that as a perk will ever be a good idea. It just doesn't do that much, especially since the grappling hook and Venom Mine is kind of for the same thing. I guess there's some maps you really might want to have another mine. It's just that the grappling hook is so insane. Like, how hard is it to just scope shot a body shot on something in order to get 4 seconds to always have your grappling claw ready? So unless you use the grappling hook badly, you're going to get it back faster. It's kind of power creep on a very dominant meta hero, to be honest. All of this just straight making Widow better. Thank goodness you can ban her at the highest tiers, right? The minor perk, I cannot believe the stats on this. Ammo efficiency versus a way faster charge rate during your ult. I don't think you really care about reloading that much, just in this game in general, so seems obvious to me. Onto the supports, we got Ana, Groggy. Enemies waking up from sleep dart are slowed for 2 seconds, because they're groggy. I get it. Biotic Bounce. After exploding, Biotic Grenade bounces and explodes again for 50 damage and healing. Wow, that's strong. The major perk is Headhunter. Biotic Rifle can crit enemies, or Shrike using Nano Boost also casts on Ana. You would only want to use Headhunter if you absolutely feel you have to DPS in the matchup you're in and you can't win the duels with your cooldowns, which you already should be able to do against most things you'd want to duel anyway. Dueling is not necessarily an issue on a Hadge, who's already really strong at that in Overwatch 2. So I think the dual Nano Boosts is just so insane. Like, you can run in with your teammate with Nano as well. Oftentimes you die while trying to cast Nano. Now it's going to heal you and give you damage resistance and extra damage yourself. So not only is your teammate gonna be able to pop off, you will. So if you're looking to carry the game anyway, why not do it in your ultimate as opposed to landing headshots? But at least it's a fun way for you to play the game if that's what you want to do. I think almost always you would want your Biotic Grenade to bounce more, but I suppose against heavy dive, then an extra CC might be more valuable. So against most things, you take the nade upgrade, but against a Doomfist, maybe you want just even more ways to slow that guy down. Baptiste gets Field Medicine. Immortality Field restores 80 health to nearby allies and restores 40 health to Baptiste when destroyed. Or Automated Healing. After placing Amplification Matrix, your shoulder turret periodically fires up to 12 shots at allies, each restoring 25 health. Oh my goodness. What the hell are they doing to this character? Major perks are Assault Burst, Regenerative Burst, Outburst grants Baptiste 20% attack speed for 4 seconds, but no longer instantly heals. Okay, a bit of a trade-off there. Or Rocket Boots, while airborne from Exo Boots, use space to dash horizontally. I think Baptiste has enough tools to combat dive already, being able to heal himself and then drop the kit that he has. So I don't know if you really need to dash on this character. And if you could just duel instead and deal more damage, why not do that almost always? I'm pretty sure. But fun factor, being able to dash as Baptiste might just be fun to do. I am shocked at these minor perks though. I think both of them sound incredibly overtuned. So Immortality Field can heal when it's destroyed, or you get a burst of auto healing in your ultimate. Both of those are just kind of nuts. Makes the things he already does better. I'm unsure how this adds to the fun factor of the game, honestly. It just gives you two different options for power creep on a character a lot of people find incredibly frustrating to play against. I like it. I play Baptiste. He's nuts. Does a little bit of everything. It's great. Speaking of that, let's go to Brig. Barrier Restoration. Shield Bash restores 100 health to barrier shield when it hits an enemy. Or Morale Boost. Inspire lasts 3 seconds longer when activated by Whip Shot. What is this power creep, guys? Oh my goodness. Holy moly. Oh man, bro. I mean, Sam left at the right time, I think. The major perk here, Quick Fix. Repair packs instantly heal an additional 35 health on critical allies. Oh my goodness. Or Whiplash. Whip Shots knockback can slam into enemies into walls, dealing extra damage. That is so freaking cool. Why don't we have more of that and less of the extra support stats? I just can't believe the stats they're giving in these perks, guys. The damage category looked kind of fun, but the support category is just healing creep. Why do that? I don't know if you'll ever need extra shield health just from bashing an enemy. I guess if you're more aggressive or the enemy's more aggressive into you, maybe that matters. But Inspire lasting 3 seconds longer every time you land a whip shot. I mean, Inspire is her best ability. So adding duration on that is freaking nuts. That's going to make your sustainability higher anyway. So why have more shield when you could be healing everybody? Gaining ult from that. Unfortunately, the most fun ability, Whiplash, is not going to be picked because Quick Fix is way too good. Reintroducing that instant heal is just way too good. Illari, Rapid Construction, Healing Pylon builds 300% faster and its cooldown is reduced by 1.5 seconds. Or Summer Solstice, Illari's flight time during Captive Sun is increased by 3 seconds and her flight speed is increased by 20%. The major perks are Solar Power, Fully Charged Solar Rifle, hits grant 12.5% of your maximum solar energy, overfilling up to 50%, or Sunburn, Outbursts ignites enemies, dealing an additional 70 damage over 3 seconds. A thing that I'm noticing about these perks is that like some of the more fun ones won't be as competitive from helping your team win the game perspective. So if a support player wants to say, hey, I want to pick the more selfish fun one, but the enemy support picks the I easily heal more, I'm a little concerned by the byproduct of that gameplay. Both of the minor perks are pretty boring. I don't think you really feel the need to fly faster, but that one's probably better because it'll make your ult more reliable. Do you really need to rapidly move the pylon at any point? Like, that's just a silly thing. She's a campy character, and I guess you can now react a bit faster to your teammates, but the pylon matters out of the enemy line of sight. So you just sort of want to leave it there. You don't want to be moving it around constantly. You want to update it to where you reposition, but it's a deployable. It's not really an active use item. So making your ult more reliable is way better. The major perks change your offense quite a bit. I think Outburst you use less, so I think Illari players probably are going to prefer Solo Power, but I think the idea of dealing damage with your knockback ability is nuts. Kind of overpowered. Pretty crazy the power creep going into the support role right now. Juno, Familiar Vitals. Pulsar torpedoes lock onto allies 35% faster, or Hyper Boost while using Glide Boost. Passing through Hyper Ring pushes you forward. Major perk Master Blaster. Medi Blaster can crit enemies or reboots. Activating Glide Boost resets double jump. Critting on Juno is way better than resetting double jump. You use it sometimes, but if you manage your cooldowns, being able to deal more damage is way stronger. Kind of nuts. Support power creep is pretty insane with this perk system, not gonna lie. And since locking onto your teammates a little bit faster with Pulsar Torpedoes doesn't feel like a huge upgrade to me, I'm not sure which one is going to be better. If you don't feel you need to dodge out of line of sight, like if you're using the boost in order to engage in more times rather than run away, kind of depends. Are you using it defensively? Maybe then getting an extra boost of momentum will guarantee you get away. But I think if you play the character well normally, you might not feel you ever can die regardless if you just play her well to manage the situation. So more of one of those, like if you're getting targeted, you have some options in order to being more mobile than the enemy, sort of like a +1, right? A lot of cooldown exchanges in hero shooters are they use their cooldowns to aggress, you use your cooldowns to run away. But when the enemy is targeting you with multiple characters, like they're diving you and focusing you, well, you run out of cooldowns, right? But now if you have extra ways to get away more, it's like I go away and now I go away more. It's an extra +1 to avoid an extra bit of dive on you. But otherwise, more raw stats from the front is what you want to default to for sure. Kiriko, Urgent Care. Healing of Fuda projectile speed is increased by 50% when seeking critical health allies. Wow. Fortune Teller, kunai hits launch 2 healing of Fuda to an ally in front of you. Oh my goodness. The major perk is Shuffling. Swift Step can be used again within 4 seconds of its initial cast. Or Foxtrot, Protection Suzu grants 40% move speed to allies for 2 seconds. If you've got good kunai aim, probably sneaking in extra healing as you're damaging is pretty nuts, in my opinion. But saving teammates that are critical also sounds pretty good, because that's when you want it to land anyway. If it lands to the teammate faster to save them from the brink of death, that matters a lot, because that means they may have died otherwise. So saving a life or just raw stats, these support perks are nuts. Because Suzu wasn't good enough, they needed to add an extra ability on top of it. So you get a 40% move speed to allies, which I assume includes yourself. So everybody gets a speed boost from Suzu now. That seems way better because it's just flexible on who you can use it on, yourself or your team. But if you're getting Dove, perhaps you want to be able to swift step multiple times, but I think she already has so many escapes. I'm not sure you need that. Either way, power creep, insane. Lifeweaver, Cleansing Grasp, Life Grip cleanses negative effects or life cycle. While active, regenerate 10 health per second. Upon death, drop a healing seed that heals allies for 250 health. That was actually the original design of the character, but either enemy or teammate could get it, and it turned out to be like more of a downside, so they made it now just be for your team, it seems. The major perks: Life Weaving, Rejuvenating Dash adds 20 healing to your next healing blossom within 3 seconds. That's kind of neat. Or Super Bloom, Thorns Detonate for 30 damage when enough stick within 1.5 seconds. An attack upgrade to the Lifeweaver character. Oh my goodness. More times than not, you'll just want to amplify your current strength, but from like the playability of quick play and stuff, being able to duel as this character more might be something you go for if you don't trust your team to peel for you. So this is a good series of perks for this character, I feel, for the playability of quick play for sure. Giving Life Grip a cleanse might not feel so necessary until it does. Like if you need it, you can go for that, but otherwise for sure the extra seed for health for your allies if you were to fall, probably the thing you'll go for. Lifeweaver's a character where because he has such a basic kit, he actually needs things like this to make him more interesting to me. Lucio's got Bass Blowout. Sound Waves knockback is increased by 15%, or Groovin. Regenerate 4 ammo per second while wall riding. Major perks are Noise Violation. Crossfade's range is increased by 150% while Amp It Up is active. Or Accelerando. Lucio's attack speed is increased by 50% while Amp It Up is active. Wow, that definitely is the one you should go for. Having a dual threat increased is quite significant. That is nuts. I don't think you really need for your cross range to go up that much. Like, maybe if you have some teammates that you're not going to have inside it, but usually it feels pretty easy for me for that to be the case. So very small percentage chance you'll ever use Noise Violation, considering your overall damage output goes up significantly and your dual threat with Accelerando. Lucio is one of the rare characters where reload downtime does actually matter. His damage is pretty decent, but his ammo count is low enough for his reload to stop him from being able to apply pressure. So there is a bit of a trade-off here between reloading while wall riding, but a lot of Lucio players probably don't maximize wall ride until you get to a certain tier of play. So something to think about. Also, just getting a bit more knockback oomph might mean you can knock that tank into the well. This perk list, I think, is a good way to like diversify up the power and allow you to be in control of what you go for, as opposed to the base kit of the character being too strong, too weak. Mercy, Angelic Recovery. Mercy receive 15 health per second while Cadis Caduceus staff is attached to a full health ally. Caduceus staff? I played this game for how long? I don't know how to say. Winged Reach, Guardian's Angel's range is increased by 30%, and the major perks are Chain Boost, Secondary Fire links to a second nearby ally, oh my goodness, or Flash Heal. Resurrect can be used on Caduceus' staff active target to restore 150 health. Doing so incurs a 15-second cooldown. All right, so this gives Mercy an option to use Res as a burst heal option, something she's always missed, or she gets 2 damage beams. Both of these are insane. In general, Guardian Angel's range increasing really means her flexibility to navigate the battlefield is way better. I think more times than not, that's going to be way more powerful because already her movement is core to her kit and a lot of her power. However, the idea of gaining health for yourself if you target a full health ally gives you some decision-making process, and that's always something that they really should have enabled more in the Mercy gameplay, because so much of it over time sort of got devolved to just hide in a corner and damage amp your Widowmaker, and that's like the worst gameplay for Mercy ever, whereas navigating the fight, making decisions actively is the best way to play, fun factor wise, for a support style kit. So some of it power creep, some of it interesting. Moira gets Vanish, Fade's duration is increased by half of a second, or Uprush, Fade's jump height is increased by 50%. Oh my goodness. The major perk is Ethical Nourishment. Biotic Orb's first 50 healing is instant on each ally it encounters, or Contamination, which is basically like a debuff on the orb, which they tried at the launch of the game. Enemies being damaged by Biotic Orb receive minus 25% healing. I guess whichever one you want to cast more is going to matter to you, but I think overall the healing one is way stronger. But maybe against certain targets, adding on these mini anti-effects if they stack might matter. Like, I'm curious, a character who's like durable but self-heals, if you pop Contamination onto a Brig, how easily do you overwhelm her? Especially with the help of the DPS passive. For the minor perk, I think Vanish is easier to use, but Uprush is way stronger. Zenyatta gets Zenith Kick. Snap Kick's knockback distance is increased by 30%. This is Sparta, or Ascendance. Activate and hold double jump to hover for up to 3 seconds. Oh my goodness, Zen gets to fly. The major perk is Focused Destruction. Secondary Fire charges 20% faster and can store 1 extra Orb of Destruction, or Duality. Zenyatta heals Orb of Harmony targets for 20% of his damage dealt to Orb of Discord targets. That is nuts. All right, pure stats for sure, Duality is just better, but if you're more of a solo-minded player or need to carry yourself, you'll go with the Secondary Fire. I don't think you really want to be using Zen's Snap Kick. Like, if you have to use it, why are you playing Zen? But it's fun factor, so that's good. More times than not, being able to ascend just means you can get up to high ground, which matters a lot. Like, now Zen, that's way better, I think, than Snap Kick getting better. Snap Kick was already good. Like, getting the target a little bit farther off of you, it's not going to make or break your gameplay, whereas having position pre-fight does make or break your gameplay. Big deal. Onto the tanks now. Doomfist has 1-2. Hitting an enemy with Rocket Punch reloads all hand cannon ammo, or Survival of the Fittest. The best defense grants 25 overhealth from eliminations, and its max overhealth is increased by 50. The major perks are Seismic Empowerment. Hitting 3 or more enemies with Seismic Slam empowers Rocket Punch, or Power Matrix. Power Block absorbs projectiles for the first second of its duration. So each one of these allows you a choice between more offense or more defense. Doomfist is one of those characters we feel is more counterable, because the things that go at him just kind of directly can counter him, and he has to shake and bake to get those cooldowns out before he gets to engage. I think in general, you'll always want to default to being able to up tempo more, deal damage more, reload faster, get your offense more. And then as the enemy starts to counter you, maybe you consider getting a little bit more health just so you can survive. Like, if you're dying, that's a problem. So you consider swapping, or swapping your perk now instead. But the most insane change here is that Doomfist gets a parry, basically, where the block is like Defense Matrix. Power Block absorbs projectiles for the first second of its duration. That is utterly insane. So you can eat a sleep dart. Have fun with that, Ana players. D.Va gets Bunny Stomp. Call mech's damage radius is increased by 50%. Ejection Suit. Eject grants 75 temporary health. The major perks are Shield System, converts 150 health into shields. Defense Matrix restores shields based on 25% of its damage absorbed. This was something they did in like April Fool's patch, I believe. Heavy rockets. Micro missiles are swapped for heavy rockets, which fire fewer projectiles with increased damage and explosion size. Another series of flexibility changes, it feels, where you'll almost always want the thing that gives offense until you feel you're dying. So if you're losing on D.Va, maybe you attempt to go for extra overhealth, but like, why, if you're out of mech, like trying to get call mech as baby D.Va, you're already losing at that point. So losing less isn't better than winning more, because losing less means you probably should swap the hero anyway. While Shield System is going to let you frontline brawl a bit more because you can get 25% of damage absorbed, but keep in mind that can be an insane amount, okay? Granted, you're only regenerating the shield part of the health, so it's kind of maintained to just that. But if you're eating a visor, this is one of the more tanky abilities now. But I think overall, you would almost always want just more damage. Better breakpoints, kill things easier. Why heal yourself if the enemy's dead? Hazard gets off the top rope. Violent Leap Slash deals 30% more damage to enemies above 250 health. So that is a portion of the cast. Or Reconstitution, Jagged Wall hits charge Spike Guard with 25 energy up to 50 extra. Major perks, Anarchic Zeal, Spike Guard spikes gain 25% lifesteal, or Deep Leap, Violent Leap's range is increased by 20%. So hurting enemies with Jagged Wall can get you your Spike Guard back, because that's the energy meter to use your block ability, which is your best ability. So that matters. But dealing more damage, probably to the tank a lot of the time, right? Violent Leap is much better as a damage dealing ability when you're finishing off a target, but in this case, you'll deal more damage, so build more ult. I tend to think using his best ability more often is probably stronger, especially as you can use your major perk to double down on either one of these. But Spike Guard spikes gain 25% lifesteal, so while you're at chip health, like this is way overkit, way over strong. Now he gets lifesteal on top of that. In some matchups, you can extend the playability of Hazard though with this other major perk where Violent Leap's range is increased by 20%. I think those maps where he struggles, where there's extreme high ground and you really just want to play Hazard instead of swapping heroes, then you might play that. But it sort of just was one of those perks that negates a weakness a little bit. And competitively speaking, you just never want that. Like in quick play, the game will feel more playable with perks like this in the game. But in ranked, you don't want your Hazard playing Hazard on a bad Hazard map using the bad Hazard major perk just so he can have a little bit more range. Junker Queen gets Rendering Recall. Recalling Jagged Blade from a stuck target refreshes its wound, or Battle Shout. Commanding Shout fully reloads Scattergun and increased ally reload speed by 50%. The major perk is Deep Wounds. Scattergun hits extend your wound durations on those enemies by 1/4 of a second. Or you get Savage Satiation. Carnage's impact damage gains 100% lifesteal. The wounds mechanic is not that strong on Queen, to be honest. When you actually look at the numbers of it, it's a little negligible. They try to buff it over time. I think Battle Shout fully reloading your gun and also now adding an extra effect to your allies' reload speed, not that useful, but seems strong to me. And I think a burst of lifesteal from Carnage's impact damage is immediately useful. Whereas sort of gaining healing over time with wounds, I just don't see how that's going to add up as much as when you need it immediately with a burst with Carnage. Mauga gets Kinetic Bandolier. Overrun reloads up to 150 ammo while charging, and 2 hearts while on an objective. Mauga counts as 2 heroes and regenerates 20 health per second. That's kind of crazy. I don't know if it's strong, but it just sounds crazy. The major perk is Firewalker. Overrun ignites enemies hit, or Combat Fuel. Critical hits grant Mauga 2 temporary overhealth on Cardiac Overdrive's next use, up to 100 health. I think Mauga's cool factor is really high, but the community sort of hates him because of how auto counter rock paper scissors he pans out to be in the meta. Your minor perk you'll pick based on where the matchup is going to default you more. If there's cases where you know there's an enemy you can go aggressive onto, then you definitely want to take the reload, because it means you'll be able to apply some pressure and then rush in after another target with full ammo after you slam onto them. So if you're playing up tempo, definitely kinetic bandolier. But if you're playing just counter the tank on the front line on the objective, then he's a little nuts. Just automatically regenerating health always. As little as that number sounds, if you're not going aggressive, you probably won't use the other one. The major perks, little complicated combat fuel as you hit crits, which of course is also double igniting a target. It's also going to then give you a burst of health on cardiac overdrives next to you, so it improves your next shout to a bunch of overhealth later. Or you could have overrun ignite enemies you hit, and I don't know what that means exactly. Like if the knockback hits them, are they ignited and then automatically from the start are able to take advantage of that instant crit on body shots? That's what I assume. So even if you miss them kind of and just knock them away a little bit, I assume they're going to be ignited. But if you land on them for sure and hit them with the stun, I would imagine that happens as well. So one is a bit of a DPS increase, which I think is stronger, but the other one is a bit more sustainability. So you'd flex on that based on the matchup. Orisa gets Heat Dissipator. Primary fire critical hits refund heat, which is the system that forces you to reload. So hitting crits means you can keep shooting and keep countering that tank much harder than before. Or Fortify briefly grants an additional 100 overhealth when activated. That's fleeting bulwark. The major perks are Charged Javelin. Hold your alternate fire to charge energy javelin, increasing its speed and knockback. Pierces enemies at full power. Mega buff on Charged Javelin. Or you can get a protective barrier straight out of Overwatch 1. Convert javelin spin instead into a launch barrier. This makes Orisa a lot more flexible if you're up against the poke characters that counter Orisa. Having a shield will help. Or if you are the counter to dive characters, then having a better javelin might matter. I'm interested how the community responds to this, because Orisa is a character everybody says they want dumpstered. This is a way to make her actually fit in the game more often, in fact. Is that what the community wants? I don't know. I think the vast majority of time you're going to want Heat Dissipator, because being able to keep shooting while hitting headshots is kind of insane. There's a bunch of targets that are kind of easy to headshot as well, whether it's like snipers at medium range or certain tanks. But instantly gaining overhealth isn't bad either. Depends on the matchup. Ramattra gets Void Surge. Void Accelerator periodically releases a burst of 6 additional projectiles during continuous fire or prolonged barrier. Void's barrier duration is increased by 25%. The major perks are Nanite Repair. Ramattra is healed for 50 health per second while within Ravenous Vortex, or Vengeful Vortex. While Ravenous Vortex is airborne, use E again to detonate it, dealing 50 damage and pulling enemies downward. A little bit matchup specific on all of this. Most of the time you probably will go for the health, but if there's a reason why you want to airburst your Vortex, if there's characters that are too hard to reach, this will actually make him a lot better at dealing with flyers in particular or different flankers. So another one of those like flexibility upgrades. Having your shield up longer sounds nice if you really badly needed that, but most of the time I think dealing more damage with your weapon, though overall his offense is in the pummel form. So prolonged barrier will help you just hold the line if you're more playing the game when you have pummel. But if you are in a matchup where you are able to rifle a lot, then that's kind of crazy that you get 6 additional projectiles like randomly that just burst out. A bit of extra burst damage on a weapon that otherwise is kind of uninspired, but we'll see how much damage that ends up being. Could be nuts. Reinhardt gets Crusader's Resolve. While using Barrier Field, your passive health regeneration triggers 50% sooner, or Fiery Uptake. Barrier Field is healed for 100% of Fire Strike's damage dealt. The major perks are Shield Slam. While Barrier Field is active, use left click to damage and knock back enemies, or Crushing Victory. Charge damage grants temporary overhealth for 50% of the damage dealt. So he can get Briggs Shield Slam kind of while holding his shield, or in the cases where you're able to actually confirm kills with Pin, getting a bit of extra health makes you go more aggro into the enemy's formation, so that's kind of cool. But most of the time, Shield Slam, you're always going to get to use that, so I would say that one's better. Bit of a skill reward here where your Fire Strike can heal some of your barrier. I think that's the highest upside actually, because you probably want your healers to heal you. And in a lot of matchups, you holding shield at all makes you invulnerable against a lot of things. So you don't necessarily need to be healing underneath, like with self-regen. Self-regen isn't that strong in comparison to having your barrier up for the whole team. So that's how I see that one. Roadhog Scrap Hook. Chain Hook hits reload 2 ammo, or Hog Toss. Pigpen's throw range is increased by 50%. Wow! The major perk is Invigorate. Take a breather rapidly increases Roadhog's movement speed by 30%, or Hog Drogon Exposure. Take a breather also heals nearby allies for 50% of the healing. That's the old 1-3-2 experiment change a little bit. Definitely more ammo, because Hog's one of the few characters where reloads tend to add up over time. You're a frontline character, you spam a lot, like you want to hide the Pigpen. Why would you want to aggressively throw it? Like, where are you putting the trap? Like, why does the throw range matter for the trap at all? You want it hidden in a spot you're going to hook someone into anyway. So that's just a bad perk in my opinion. And most of the time you'll want to hear your teammates, but maybe you're selfish and off on a flank and then you want to move faster. Sigma gets Kinetic Cycle. Absorbing projectiles with Kinetic Grasp also reduces Accretion's cooldown. Massive Impact. Accretion knockback duration increases up to 3 seconds based on travel distance. And Hyper Strike is the major perk here. Every 5 direct hits with Hyperspheres, your next successful quick melee levitates and knocks away enemies. Levitation is activate and hold double jump to briefly levitate upward. Wow, this is the most gimmicky major perk ever. Both of these suck. And the minor perks are more interesting actually, but they were taken from previous versions of Sigma anyway, where absorbing projectiles reduces your accretion, get it more often, more uptime, have it a threat again, able to help you against dive by having another stun cooldown, or if the enemy's playing slower and you can accretion them from far away, gain an advantage from the distance it travels, which is kind of cool of an idea. Winston gets Short Circuit. Tesla Cannon deals 30% more damage to deployable objects or heavy landing. During Primal Rage, jump packs damage and area increases up to 75%, while airborne. Major perks are Chain Lightning, fully charged secondary fire, hits bounce up to 2 additional times, and Revitalizing Barrier. Barrier projectile heals allies within it for 30 health per second. There's a typo there. If you're against a lot of turrets that are annoying for Winston to deal with, maybe then you swap to the anti-turret perk, but overall having your Primal Rage better always is just a better idea. Like if the enemy doesn't have the thing you need to counter the perk for, then you don't pick the perk, right? And now it's just a straight buff to Winston always, because you'll always pick heavy landing for the most part. The major perk allows you to have a small amount of healing for your team or bouncing up your alt fire. Both are really weak abilities anyway. I like to use the alt fire, but a lot of even top level players never use it, even with it being buffed repeatedly over years. But it allows them to use that chain lightning tech from the PvE, I suppose. Wrecking Ball gets Steamroller. Roll impacts deal 100% more damage to tanks. Pack Rat. Health packs heal an additional 100 health. Major perk, Hang Time. Pile Driver winds up longer, gaining air control and dealing up to 50% more damage. Transfer Efficiency. Reactivating Adaptive Shield reduces its cooldown by 1.5 seconds per ally affected, and ally health gained is increased by 33%. Almost always want to pick the additional damage to tanks, even if you don't use it that much, but if you are playing more of a solo queue style, gaining a bit more health on health packs, like that really boosts up the mini health packs too, because then you get 100 from them as well. Hang Time is a cool idea, transforms the ability, and it's kind of the point of playing Wrecking Ball, whereas buffing the Adaptive Shield, which you probably don't want to be giving to your team if you have to. Like, you'd much rather just be more effective at the thing you're supposed to be doing rather than the compensation rework that they gave him later on to try to buff him up to the standard of tanks in Overwatch 2. Zarya gets Jump Ups. Secondary fire self knockback is increased by 75%, so you can rocket jump on more things, or Graviton Crush. Graviton Surge deals up to 30% of enemy max health as damage over time. I just can't see why you would ever pick rocket jumps over that. That's insane. The major perk is Energy Lance. Particle Cannon's beam pierces enemies while over 50 energy. Or Spotter. Projected Barrier activates ally health regeneration and increases their movement by 15%. So that gives you a choice of, are you in more of a frontline battle or a supportive battle? If your team has Diver DPS, like you got a Reaper going in, Genji Blade going in, then that Spotter upgrade is going to be really good for them, but if there's more things fighting on the front line than being scarier with a piercing attack, that's pretty nuts as well. They're both good. That's it, guys. All 42 heroes, all of their perks. Let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave it a like, and don't forget to like, subscribe, as well as follow us on Twitter and now Instagram for more gym pics and pics of my food that I cooked. That's been it for me. I've been Frito. Later.